Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Chapter 15. Airgrow. Someone was creeping over the ground around the castle. Sky and lake alike turned periwinkle blue. A flower large as cabbage burst into bloom in the greenhouses, but with no Hagrid visible from the castle window, striding the ground with Fang at his heel. The scenes didn't look right to Harry. No better, in fact, that the inside of the castle where things were so horribly wrong. Harry and Ron had tried to visit Hermione, but visitor were now barred from the hospital wings. We're taking no more chance, Madame Pomfrey told them severely through a crack into a hospital door. No, I'm sorry. There's every chance the attacker might come back to finish these people off. With Dumbledore gone, fear had spread as never before, so that the sun warming the castle wall outside seemed to stop them mulling in the windows. There was a barely face to be seen in the school that didn't look worried and tense, and any laughter that rang through the corridors sounded shrill and unnatural, and was quickly stiff. Harry constantly repeated Dumbledore's final word himself. I will only truly left this school when none here are loyal to me. Help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. But what goods were these words? What exactly were they supposed to ask for help? When everyone was just as confused and scared as they were, Hagrid's hint about the spider was as far easier to understand. The trouble was, there didn't seem to be a single spider left in the castle to follow. Harry looked everywhere he went, helped rather reluctantly by Ron, their hampered, of course, by the fact that they weren't allowed to wander off on their own, but had to move around the castle in a pack with other Gryffindor. Most of their fellow students seemed glad that they were being shepherded from classes to classes by teacher, but Harry found it very irksome. One person, however, seemed to be thoroughly enjoying the atmosphere of terror and suspicion. Draco Malfoy was strutting around the school as though he had just been appointed head boy. Harry didn't realize that he was so pleased about it until the potion lesson about a fortnight after Dumbledore and Hagrid had left. When sitting right there behind Malfoy, Harry overheard him gloating to Graben Goyle. I always thought Father might be the one who get rid of Dumbledore, he said, not troubling to keep his voice down. I told you, you think of Dumbledore, the worst headmaster the school ever had. Maybe I will get a decent headmaster now. Someone who won't want the Chamber of Secret close. McGonagall won't last long. She's only filling in. Snape swept past Harry, making no comment about Hermione's empty seat in the cauldron. Sir, said Malfoy loudly, Sir, why don't you apply for the headmaster job? Now, Malfoy, said Snape, though he could succumb suppressed thin lip smile. Professor Dumbledore had only been suspended by the governor. I dare say he'll be back with us as soon as enough. Yeah, right, said Malfoy, smirking. Expect you to have Father vote, sir. If you wanted to apply for the job, I'll tell Father you're the best teacher here, sir. Snape smirked as he swept off around the dungeon. Fortunately, not spotting Seamus Finnegan was pretending to vomit in his cauldron. I'm quite surprised by the Mudblood. Haven't all packed their bags by now, Malfoy went on. Bet you 5 gallons from the next one die. Pity it wasn't Granger. The bell rang at the moment, which was lucky. And Malfoy the last word. Ron had leaped off his stool and scrambled to collect bags and books. His attempt to reach Malfoy was unnoticed. Let me at him. Let me at him, Ron growled, and as Harry and Dean hung out his arm, I don't care. I don't mind my wand. I want to kill him with my bare hand. Hurry up. I've got to take you up to herbology, barked Snape over the class head, and off they went, crocodile fashion, with Harry, Ron, and Dean bring up the rear, Ron still trying to get a loose. It was only safe to let him go once Snape had seen them out of the castle, and they were making their way across the vegetable patch toward the greenhouse. The herbology Her biology class were very subdued. There were now two missing from their number, Justin and Hermione. Professor Sprout said them all two were putting the Abyssinian shovel fixed. Harry went to tip an armful of Werther stack on the compost heap and found himself face to face with Ernie Macmillan. Ernie took a deep breath and said, very firmly, I just want to say, Harry, that I'm sorry. I suspected you. I know you never attack Hermione Granger, and I apologize for all the stuff I said. We're all in the same boat now, and, well, he held a punchy hand, and Harry shook it. Ernie and his friend Hannah come to work at the same Shilvik as Harry and Ron. That Draco corrector, said Ernie, breaking off dead twigs. He seemed very pleased about all this, doesn't he? Do you know you think he might be Slytherin? That's clever of you, said Ron, who didn't seem to have forgiven Ernie as readily as Harry. Do you think it's Malfoy or Harry? Ernie asked. No, said Harry so firmly that Ernie and Harry stared. A second later, Harry spotted something that made him hit Ron over the hand with a pruning shear. Ouch! What are you? Harry pointed to the ground for a few feet away, several large spiders scurrying across the earth. Oh, yeah, said Ron, trying to feeling to look pleased. But we can't follow them now. Ernie and Hannah were listening curiously. Harry watched the spider running away. Look like they're heading for the Forbidden Forest. And Ron looked even unhappier about that. At the end of the lesson, Professor Sprout escorted the class to their Defense Against Dark Art lesson. Harry and Ron lagged behind the others so that they could talk out of the earshot. We'll have to use the invisibility. We have to use the invisibility cloak again, Harry told Ron. We can take Fang with us. He used to go into the forest with Hagrid. He might be some help. Right, said Ron, who was twirling his wand nervously in his finger. Aren't there supposed to be werewolves in the forest? He added, as they took their usual place at the back of Lockhart classroom. Before he not to answer that question, Harry said, there are good things in there too. The Centaur are all right, and the unicorn, who had never been into the Forbidden Forest before, Harry had entered it only once, and had hoped never to do it again. So Lockhart bounded into the room, and the class stared at him. Every other teacher in the place was looking grimmer than usual. Lockhart appeared nothing short of bored. Come on now, he cried, beaming around him. Wild these long faces. People swapped expressions look, but nobody answered. Don't you people realize, said Lockhart, speaking slowly as though they were all bitten, the danger had passed. The culprit had been taken away. Say who? Said Dean Thomas loudly. My dear young man, the Minister of Magic wouldn't have taken Hagrid if he hadn't been 100% sure that he was guilty, said Lockhart, in the tone of someone explaining that 1 and 1 made 2. Oh, yes, he would, said Ron, even more loudly than Dean. I flatter myself I know more touchy about Hagrid arrested than you do, Mr. Weasley, said Lockhart in a self-satisfied tone. Ron started to say that he didn't think so, somehow, but stopped in the mid-sentences when Harry kicked him hard under the desk. We weren't there, remember? Harry murmured. But Lockhart, disgusting cheeriness has hinted that he had always thought Hagrid was no good. His confidence that the whole business was now at the end irritated Harry so much that he yearned from throwing Gadding with gold right into Lockhart's stupid face. Instead, he contented himself with scrawling a note to Ron. Let's do it tonight. Ron read the message, swallowed hard, and looked sideways at the empty seat usually filled by Hermione. The sight seemed to stiffen his resolve, and he nodded. The Gryffindor common room was always very crowded. These days, before from 6 o'clock onward, the Gryffindor had nowhere else to go. They also had plenty to talk about, with the result that the common room often didn't empty until past midnight. Henry went to get the invisibility cloak out of his trunk right after dinner, and spent the evening sitting on it, waiting for the room to clear. Fred and George challenged Harry and Ron to a few games of Exploding Snap, and Ginny sat watching them, very subdued in Hermione's usual chair. Harry and Ron kept losing on purpose, trying to finish the game quickly. But even so, it was well past midnight when Fred, George, and Ginny finally went to bed. Harry and Ron waited for the distant sound of 2 dormitory doors closing before seizing the cloak, throwing it over themselves, and was climbing through the portrait hall. It was another difficult journey through the castle, dodging all the teacher. At last they reached the entrance hall, slid back the lock on the oak front doors, squeezed between them, trying to stop any creaking step out of the moonlit ground. course, said Ron abruptly as they strode across the black grass. We might get to the forest and find there's nothing to follow. Those spiders might not have been going there at all. I know, it looked like they were moving in a sort of general direction. But, it voiced tail away hopefully, they reached Hagrid's house, and so sorry looking with its black window. When Harry pushed the door open, Fang went mad with joy at the sight of them, worried that he might wake everyone at the castle with his deep booming bark. They hastily fed him truckle fudge from a tin of mantelpieces, which glued his teeth together. Harry left the invisibility cloak on Hagrid's table. There would be no need for it in the pitch-dark forest. Come on, Fang, we're going for a walk, said Harry, patting his leg, and Fang bounded happily out of the house behind them, dashed to the edge of the forest, and lifted his leg against a large skimamore tree. Harry took out his wand, murmured, "Limus," and a tiny light appeared at the end of it, just enough to let them watch the path for sign of a spider. "Good thinking," said Ron. "I'd like light mine too, but you know, I'll probably blow up or something." Harry tapped Ron on the shoulder, pointing at the grass. Two slowly spiral hurrying away from the wand light into the shade of the trees. "Okay," Ron resigned the words, "but I'm ready. Let's go." So with Fang scrambling around them, sniffing trees, roots, and leaves, they entered the forest. By the glow of Harry's wand, they followed the steady trickle of spider moving along the path. They walked for about 20 minutes, not speaking, listening hard for noise and breaking twigs and rustling leaves. Then, when the trees had become thicker than ever, so that the stars overhead were no longer visible, and Harry Wand shone alone in the sea of the dark, and they saw their spider guide leaving the path. Harry paused, trying to see where the spider were going, but everything outside his little sphere of light and pitch black. He had never been this deep into the forest before. He could vividly remember Hagrid advising him not to leave the forest path last time he'd been here, but Hagrid was a mile away now, probably sitting in a cell in Azkaban, and he had also said to follow the spider. Something wet touched Harry's hands. And he jumped backward, crushing Ron's foot, but it was only Fang's nose. "What do you reckon, Harry?" said Ron, whose eyes he could just make out reflecting the light from his wand. "We have come this far," said Ron, so they followed the darting shadow of the spider into the tree. They couldn't move very quickly now. There were tree roots and stump in their way, barely visible in the nearer blackness. Harry could feel Fang's not hard breathe on his hand more than once. They had stopped so that Harry could crouch down and find the spider and the one light. They walked for that seemed like at least half an hour, their robes snagging on low-slung branches and brambles. After a while, they noticed that the ground seemed to be sloping downward through the trees were as thick as ever. Then Fang suddenly let loose a great echoing bark, making both Harry and Ron jump out of their skins. "What?" said Ron loudly, looking around the pitch dark and gripping Harry's elbow very hard. "There's something moving over there," Harry breathed. "Listen, sounds like something big." They listened, some distance to the right, and something big was snapping branches as it cut past the trees. "Oh no," said Ron. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." "Shut up," said Harry frantically. "It'll hear you." "Hear me?" said Ron in an unchartedly high voice. "It's already heard Fang." The darkness seemed to be pressing on their eyeballs as they stood terrified, waiting. There was strange rumbling noise, and then silence. "What do you think it's doing?" said Harry. "Probably getting ready to pounce," said Ron, then waited, shivering, hardly daring to move. "Do you think it's gone?" Harry whispered. "Dunno." Then to the right came a sudden blaze of light, so bright in darkness that both of them flung off their hands to shield their eyes. Fang yelped and tried to run, but got lodged in a tangle of thorns and yelped even louder. "Harry!" Ron shouted, his voice broken with relief. "Harry, it's our car!" "What?" "Come on!" Harry blundered after Ron toward the light, stumbling and tripping. And a moment later they had emerged in a clearing. Mr. Weasley's car was standing empty in the middle of a circle of thick trees under a roof of dense branch. Its headlamp ablaze as Ron walked open-mouthed up toward it. It moved slowly toward him, exactly alert. Torgus started greeting its owner. "It's been here all the time," said Ron delightedly, walking around the car. "Look at it! The forest turned wild!" The wing of the car was scratched and smeared with mud. Apparently, it had taken to trotting around the forest on its own. Fang didn't seem all keen at all. He kept close to Harry. He could feel him quivering, his breathing slowing down again. He restuffed his wand back into his robe, and we thought it was going to attack us, said Ron, leaning against the car and patting it. "I wonder where it had gone. Harry squinted around the floated around to find more spider, but they had all scattered away from the glare of the headlight. "We have lost the trail," he said. "Come on, let's go and find them." Ron didn't speak. He didn't move. His eye was fixed on some point 10 feet above the forest floor, right behind Harry. His face was livid with terror. Harry didn't even have time to turn around. There was a loud clicking noise, and suddenly he felt something long and hairy seize him around the middle and lift it on the ground, so that he was hanging, face down. Struggling, terrified, he heard more clicking and saw Ron's leg leave the ground too. Heard Fang whimpering and howling. Next moment, he was being swept away in the dark trees. Head hangings, Harry saw that they had hold him, was marching on 6 immensely long, hairy legs, the front 2 clutching him tightly. Below, a pair of shining black pincers. Behind him, he could hear another creature, no doubt carrying Ron. They were moving on the very heart of the forest. Harry could hear Fang fighting to free himself from the third monster, whining loudly, but Harry couldn't have yelled even if he had wanted to. He seemed to have left his voice back with the car in the clearing. He never knew how long it was in the creature clutches. He only knew the darkness suddenly lifted enough for him to see the leaf strewn ground was now swarming with spiders, crawling his neck sideways. He realized they had reached the rims of vast hollow. A hollow which had been clear of trees, so that the stars shone brightly in the worst scenes he had ever clapped eyes upon. Spiders, not tiny spider, like those surging over the leaf below. Spider the size of Carthary's, 8 eyes, 8 legs, black, hairy, gigantic. The massive specimens that was carrying Harry made its way down the steep slope toward a misty dome. Web in the very center of the hollow, which while its fellow close and all around it, clicking their pincer excitedly at the sight of its load. Harry fell to the ground of all fours as the spider released him. Ron and Fang thundered down next to him. Fang wasn't howling any more, but cowardly silently on the spot. Ron looked exactly like Harry felt. His mouth was stretched wide in a kind of silent scream. His eyes were popping. Harry suddenly realized the spider which had dropped him was saying something. I've been hard to tell because he clicked his pincer with every word he spoke. "Argrog," it called. "Argrog." And from the middle of the misty doom web, a spider the size of a small elephant emerged very slowly. There was a gray and black of his body and legs, and each of the eyes on this ugly pincer was milky white. He was blind. "What is it?" he said, clicking his pincer rapidly. "Men!" clicked the spider who had caught Harry. "Is it Hagrid?" said Hagrid, moving closer, his 8 milky eyes wandering valiantly. "Strangers!" clicked the spider who had brought Ron. "Kill them!" clicked Hagrid fretfully. "I was sleeping." "We're a friend of Hagrid!" Harry shouted. His heart seemed to have left his chest to went his throat. Click, 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 when the pincers spied all around the hollow. Hagrid paused. "Hagrid had never sent men in our hollow before," he said slow. "Hagrid's in trouble," said Harry, breathing very fast. "That's why we have come." "In trouble?" said the aged spider, and he thought that he heard concern beneath the clicking pincer. "But why has he sent you?" Harry thought of getting to his feet, but he decided against it. He didn't think his leg would support him, so he spoke from his ground as calmly as he could. "They think up to the school that Hagrid had been setting something on students. They've taken him to Azkaban." Agro clicked his pencil furiously, and all around the hollow the sound was echoed by the crown of a spider. It was like applause, except applause didn't usually make Harry feel sick with fear. But that was years ago. But that was years ago, said Agro fretfully. Years and years ago. I remembered well. That's why they made him leave the school. They believed that I was the monster that dueled in the college chamber of secret. They thought that Hagrid had open the chamber and set me free. And you didn't come from the chamber of secret? Said Harry. You could feel a cold sweat on his forehead. I, said Albert, clicking angrily, I was not born in the castle. I come from a distant land. A traveler gave me to Hagrid when I was an egg. Hagrid was only a boy, but he cared for me, hidden in a cupboard in the castle, feeding me on scraps from the table. Hagrid is my good friend and a good man. When I was discovered and blamed for the death of a girl, he protected me. I have lived here in the forest ever since, where Hagrid still visits me. He even found me a wife, Mustache, and see how our family has grown, all through Hagrid's goodness. Harry summoned the remain of his courage. So, you never attack anyone? Never, croaked the old spider. It would have been my instinct, but from respect of Hagrid, I never harm a human. The body of the girl who was killed from discovered in the bathroom. I never saw any part of the castle, but the cupboard in which I grew up. Our kind like a dark and the quiet. But then, do you know what did kill that girl? Said Harry, because whatever it is, it's back attacking people again. His words were drowned by a loud outbreak of clicking and the rustling of many long legs shifting angrily. Large black shapes shifted all around him. That the thing that lived in the castle, said Aragog, is an ancient creature. We spider fear above all other. Well, do I remember how I pleaded with Hagrid to let me go when I sensed the beast was moving about the school? What is it? Siri urgently. More loud clicking, more rustling. The spire seemed to be closing in. We do not speak of it, said Hagrid fiercely. We do not name it. We never even told Hagrid the name of that dread creature, though he asked me many times. Harry didn't want to press the subject, now with the spider pressing closer on this all side. Aragog seemed to be tired of talking. He was whacking slow on the doomed web, but his fellow spider continued to inch slowly toward Harry and Ron. We'll just go, then, Harry called desperately to Aragog, hearing leaves rustling behind him. Go? Said Aragog slowly. I think not. But my son and daughter do not harm Hagrid. I'll make a man, but cannot deny them fresh meat when it wanders so willingly under midst. Goodbye, friend of Hagrid. Harry spun around, feet away, towering above him was a solid wall of spider, flicking their many eyes, gleaming their ugly black head. Even as he reached for his wand, Harry knew it was no good. There were too many of them. As he tried to stand ready to die, fighting, a loud, long note sound, a blaze of light flame through the hollow. Mr. Weasley's car was thundering down the slope, headlamp glaring, its horn screeching, knocking the spider aside. Several were thrown on their back, their endless leg waving to the air. Their car flew to halt in front of Harry and Ron, and the doors flew open. Get Fing! Harry yelped, diving in front of the seat. Ron seized the board out around the middle and threw him, yelping, in the back of the car. The door slammed shut. Harry didn't touch the escalator, but the car didn't need him. The engine roared and they were off, hitting more spider. They sped off the slope, out of the hollow, and they were soon crashing through the forest branch, whipping the window as the car found its way cleverly through the widest gap, following a path of its obviously new. Harry looked sideways at Ron. His mouth was still open in a silent scream, but his eyes weren't popping anymore. Are you okay? Harry stared straight ahead, unable to speak. They smashed their way through the undergrowth, Fang howling loudly in the back seat. And Harry saw the wing mirrors snap up. They squeezed past a large oak. After 10 noisy, rocky minutes, the trees thinned, and Harry could again see patches of sky. The car stopped so suddenly that they were nearly thrown into the windscreen. Then it reached the edge of the forest. Fang flung himself out the window and anxiously to get out, and when Harry opened the door, he shot off through the trees to Hagrid's house, tail between his legs. Harry got out too, and after a minute or so, Ron soon regained the feeling of its limb and followed. Still stiff neck and stare, Harry gave the car a grateful pat as it reserved back into force and disappeared from view. Harry went back into Hagrid's cabin to get the invisibility cloak. Pan was trembling under a blanket in his basket. When Harry got outside again, he found Ron being violently sick in the pumpkin patch. "Follow the spider," said Ron weakly, wiping his mouth on his sleeve. "I'll never forgive Hagrid. We're lucky to be alive. I bet he thought Algar wouldn't hurt his friend of his." "That's exactly Hagrid's problem," said Ron, thumping the wall of the cabin. "He always thinks monsters aren't as bad as they are made out, and look where it's got him. A cell in Azkaban." He was shivering uncontrollably now. "What was the point of sending us there? What have we found out? I would like to know." "But Hagrid never opened the chamber secret," said Harry, throwing the cloak over Ron and prodding him in the arm to make him rock. "He was innocent." Ron gave a loud snort. Evidently, hatching Argo out in the cupboard wasn't his idea of being innocent. As his castle grew near, Harry twitched the cloak to make sure their feet were hidden. Then, pushing the creaking front door ajar, they walked carefully back across the entrance hall and up the marble staircase, holding their breath as they passed corridor where watchful sentries were walking. At last, they hurried satisfied Griffin to the common room, where the fire had burned itself into growing ash. They took off the cloak and climbed the winding staircase out to their demontory. Ron flew onto his bed without bothering to get undressed. Harry, however, didn't feel very sleepy. He sat on the edge of his four-poster, thinking hard about everything Agro had said. The creature that was lurking somewhere in the castle. He thought sounded like sort of monster. Voldemort, even other monster didn't want to name it, but he and Ron were no closer to find out what it was. But he and Ron were no closer to finding out what it was, or how it petrified its victim. Even Hagrid never known what was in the Chamber of Secret. He swung his leg onto his bed and leaned back against his pillow, watching the moon glinting on him through the tower window. They couldn't see what else they could do. They had hit dead ends everywhere. Riddle had caught the wrong person. The hair of the Slytherin had got off, and no one could tell whether it was the same person or a different one. Who had opened the Chamber of Secret this time? There was nobody else to ask. Harry lay down, still thinking about what Hagrid had said. He was becoming drowsy when what seemed like their very last hope occurred to him, and he was suddenly sat bolt right up. "Ron!" he hissed through the dark. "Ron!" Ron woke with a yelp like fangs, started wildly around and saw Harry. "Ron, that girl who died!" "Ergo said she was found in the bathroom," said Harry, ignoring Neville's snuffing snore from the corner. "What if she never left the bathroom? And what if she's still there?" Ron rubbed his eyes, frowning through the moonlight, and then he understood. "You don't think. Not Moaning Myrtle."